Erev Tov. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. And I want to share some thoughts that I wrote late last year in reaction to the Pope's visit and the celebration of an interfaith service in Hiroshima. Late last year, in 2019, Pope Francis paid a visit to Asia, stopping in Thailand and Japan. While in Japan, he focused on the toll of human suffering during the 20th century, especially the destruction wrought by atomic weapons. Japan was the only country upon which these weapons had been used, exactly 75 years ago. But more recently, Japan also suffered one of the worst nuclear disasters, in this case, brought on by a tsunami and human error, to befall humanity. The Pope issued a strong call questioning the morality of nuclear weapons, demanding that we prioritize human life and the good of the world. At that time, as the rabbi of the Jewish community of Japan and the chair of the Assembly of Rabbis and Cantors of Australia, New Zealand, and Asia, I was fortunate to be present as part of a delegation of faith leaders, non-Catholic Christians, Buddhists, Shinto, Muslim, and me, faith leaders in Japan, for a joint interfaith service of prayer in Hiroshima. Held at the memorial, and indeed very close to the hypocenter of the atomic blast that destroyed the city and killed over 70,000 people instantly, and another 70,000 within a year. Several thousand people, younger and older, joined with the Pope to dedicate themselves to peace and the elimination of weapons of mass destruction, especially nuclear weapons. The 84-year-old pontiff had a busy schedule, with morning events and a mass in Nagasaki, followed by the service in Hiroshima in early evening, and on the following day he was in Tokyo. He appeared tired when he greeted each of us, the faith leaders, though he had a firm grasp as he shook our hands and exchanged pleasant words with each of us. I thanked him for coming to Japan with a message of peace and greeted him on behalf of the Jews of Japan and of Australasia. And yet, the Pope came to life when he moved on to welcome the very elderly survivors of the Hiroshima blast. He was visibly touched by their warm welcome, their painful memories, and spent minutes with each, embracing them and sharing their tears. After a minute of silent prayer, done in Japanese fashion with the tolling of the bell of a Buddhist temple, we were addressed by both a survivor and by the Pope. The elderly woman called to mind the horrors of the day and the suffering and destruction. She must have been very young in 1945, caught in horrors caused by the supposed responsible adults, both those whose decisions led to the war and those who decided to drop not one, but 2 nuclear weapons on Japan. The Pope fully engaged and energetically also focused on the horrors of nuclear war, calling on the nations of the world to eliminate the nuclear arsenals that threaten global human survival. He stressed that these weapons are immoral in both possession, dissemination, and use. As he talked, it was not difficult to visualize the Hiroshima Peace Memorial, the remains of the building under the blast hypocenter, which loomed in the distance. Today, in the early years of the 21st century, there are 2 vanishing groups of survivors, both of whom bear testament to existential dangers that faced humanity in the past, but also in the present and in the future. The survivors of the Holocaust are a global reminder of man's inhumanity to man. The Jewish people, and also the Roma, faced genocide at the hands of the Nazis. Seen as less than human, their total destruction was sought because of a racist doctrine of genocide. Tragically, these were not the first attempted genocides, nor the last. For the near destruction of indigenous people in North America, in Australia, and other parts of the globe, and the Armenian genocide, to the recent attempted elimination of the Rohingya, mass murder of an entire ethnic group has continued to be part of the human lexicon of action. Never again must mean an end to all forms of genocide. As the Pope reminded us yet again, the survivors of Hiroshima also bear witness to inhumanity, as entire cities of younger and older people were destroyed in seconds by the horrific power of the atomic bomb. Tens of thousands also died soon after, suffering from the horror of the heat caused by the blast and by radiation poisoning. From then to now, the threat of nuclear destruction looms over all of us, not only by the nuclear powers who calculate the equations of deterrence, but also by rogue nations and groups who seek these weapons as a wedge in their equations of terror. These weapons are, as the Pope reminded us, indeed immoral, and their use should be unthinkable. Never again, here too, is a clarion call to ban the use and indeed the very existence of these weapons of mass destruction. While I don't always agree with him, the Pope's words and actions in Nagasaki, Hiroshima, and Tokyo during his visit exemplified the religious leader at his or her best, and his words are ones that I can embrace wholeheartedly. Taking on the existential issue of human survival, he challenged the norms of international relations and the balance of terror, crying from the wilderness for nuclear disarmament, a message to which I also ascribe. I believe the Pope knew that his was a voice from outside, but that it would be complicit not to speak out. It is up to the rest of us to choose, or indeed not to choose, sadly. It's up to the rest of us, hopefully, to listen. Shabbat Shalom.